Connecting to FunFactDrop. Loading! 90s memories! Get off the internet!
Welcome back to FunFactDrop. If you're still haunted by the sound of dial-up internet, or remember when rewinding a VHS tape was an act of kindness, you're in the right place. This isn't just a list. We're unpacking the stories, secrets, and strange facts behind the 90s' most iconic pop culture relics. This is 20 Things Only 90s Kids Remember. Let's rewind.
Milk?
Number 20. Blockbuster, the rise and ruin of a Friday night empire. In the late 90s, nothing said weekend like a trip to Blockbuster. At its peak, the company operated over 9,000 stores, servicing 65 million members across the globe. But Blockbuster wasn't built on movies, it was built on control. Founded in 1985 by David Cook, a Texas-based software engineer, the company was originally designed to catalog oil inventory. He pivoted to VHS rental using the same barcode-based logic. The store was bright, family-safe, and fully computerized, a huge leap from the sketchy mom-and-pop shops with adult sections behind beaded curtains. Blockbuster's success exploded by offering thousands of titles, uniform layouts, and something unheard of: open Sunday hours. They became the largest video rental company in the world by the early 90s. What made them infamous wasn't just the VHS wall, it was the late fees. By the early 2000s, Blockbuster earned $800 million a year on fines alone. They coined the phrase, "Be kind, rewind," a friendly reminder that was really a money trap in disguise. But behind the scenes, Blockbuster was about to choke on its own arrogance. In the year 2000, Netflix, still mailing DVDs in little red envelopes, approached Blockbuster with a buyout offer of $50 million. Blockbuster declined, calling it a niche business. Fast forward, Blockbuster files for bankruptcy in 2010. Netflix becomes a streaming giant, and all that's left is one lonely store in Bend, Oregon, which has ironically become a tourist attraction and Airbnb. Fun fact, Blockbuster once partnered with Enron to create a streaming platform in 2000, but the project failed within a year. Yes, that Enron. Legacy. Blockbuster is now shorthand for business failure. But for a generation of kids, those blue carpets, squeaky cases, and the smell of plastic are as sacred as any movie ever rented. Number 19, Tamagotchis, when digital death taught us about responsibility. Before iPads babysat kids and smartphones raised them, there was a pocket-sized egg that beeped, pooped, and died, sometimes in public. Tamagotchis, a blend of tamago, egg, and watch, launched in 1996 by Bandai and co-creator Aki Maita, who had a simple vision. What if every child in Japan could carry around a digital pet, something they had to feed, care for, and keep alive, all inside a plastic shell the size of a thumb? Within a year, it became a global phenomenon. By 1997, over 40 million Tamagotchis had been sold worldwide, with retail prices starting at $17.99. The device was simple: 3 buttons, but it tracked your pet's hunger, happiness, discipline, and waste. If you ignored it, it would die. Not power down, die. Complete with a pixelated tombstone and a gut punch of guilt. Schools across the globe banned Tamagotchis. Teachers said they disrupted class. Parents said they disrupted sleep. But kids? Kids treated them like living things. They cried when they lost them. They buried them in shoeboxes. Creepy rumor, in the late 90s, unverified reports claimed a child in South Korea had a seizure from Tamagotchi stress. Though proven false, it fueled the myth that these toys were emotionally dangerous. Collector status. Today, first-gen models in mint condition fetch $300 to $700, depending on color and packaging. There's even a black market community of rare ROM version collectors on Japanese forums. Legacy. Tamagotchis taught a generation to care for something, even if it wasn't real. And in a weird way, they were our first taste of digital empathy and grief. Number 18. Beanie Babies, America's softest economic bubble. In the mid-90s, these plush creatures weren't just toys, they were investments. Created by Ty Warner in 1993, Beanie Babies stood out due to their understuffed design, making them floppy and more lifelike. But what made them explode in popularity was an ingenious marketing tactic: artificial scarcity. Warner would retire certain Beanie Babies with little notice. Suddenly, a $5 plush was worth hundreds on the resale market. People began hoarding them. Some even took out insurance policies on their collections. Couples delayed honeymoons to fund their beanie portfolios. It was madness. And it was everywhere. At its peak in 1998, Beanie Babies made up 10% of all eBay sales. Fun fact, a couple once got divorced and had to split their Beanie Baby collection in court. Physically, on the floor, one by one. Why it collapsed? Oversaturation. Ty released too many too fast. The secondary market crashed by 2000. Suddenly, garages were full of worthless polyester-filled dreams. Collector status. Today, rare originals like Princess Diana Bear or Peanut the Royal Blue Elephant can fetch thousands, but only if they're in mint condition with perfect tags. Legacy. Beanie Babies were the stock market of the playground. They taught us about hype, risk, and the pain of holding on too long. Number 17. TRL, the birthplace of pop culture fandom. MTV's Total Request Live wasn't just a music countdown. It was the heartbeat of late 90s teen culture. Premiering in 1998 and hosted by Carson Daly, TRL let fans vote on their favorite videos and see them aired live from Times Square. The windows behind the studio, packed with screaming teens hoping to see Britney, NSYNC, or Eminem. TRL made stars, it boosted sales, it created frenzy. Fun fact, Mariah Carey once made a surprise appearance, pushing an ice cream cart, later revealed to be a sign of a mental health spiral. It was one of the show's most talked about moments. TRL became a cultural mirror. When boy bands rose, it played Bye 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 on loop. When Limp Bizkit hit, it headbanged. It was democracy meets pop culture. Legacy, TRL was where Gen Y learned to obsess, vote, and scream. It turned fandom into a movement and gave birth to the idea of trending. Number 16, dial-up internet, the screech that opened the world. You couldn't use the phone and the internet at the same time, and everyone knew the sound. That scratchy modem handshake signaled a journey online to AOL chat rooms, GeoCities sites, and the wild west of the early web. Dial-up ran on phone lines, topping out at 56 kilobits per second. To load a single image, minutes. To download a song, hours. Fun fact, AOL sent over 1 billion free trial CDs between 1993 and 2006. People used them as coasters, art, and even shingles. Disconnection was sudden and brutal. Pick up the house phone, boom, gone. Legacy. Dial-up taught patience. It made information feel earned. And it introduced us to the concept of digital independence, with a side of frustration. Number 15, slap bracelets. Style, violence, and the great school ban. Invented in 1983 by a Wisconsin shop teacher, slap bracelets became a fad in 1990. They were just steel bands wrapped in colorful fabric, straight until you slapped them on your wrist. Then they curled into place. It was satisfying, addictive, and sometimes painful. By 1991, schools were banning them. The cheap knockoffs used thinner metal and broke easily, cutting skin and sparking panic. Retail price, about $1 to $3, but priceless in playground clout. Fun fact, some kids wrapped them around ankles, bike handles, even pencils. Anything that could be slapped was. Legacy. Slap bracelets were the fidget spinners of the 90s. Simple, sensory, and slightly dangerous. Number 14. Pogs, the cardboard casino of the cafeteria. Before smartphones and Fortnite, school kids had a battlefield, and it was made of milk caps. Pogs originated in Hawaii in the 1920s as a promotional bottle cap game. But it wasn't until the early 90s that a company called World Pog Federation rebranded the game with wild designs, mascots, and official slammers. The game was simple but competitive. Stack the pogs, slam them, and keep what flips. It became an all-out war of skill and luck. By 1994, pogs were a $200 million business. Schools banned them due to fights, gambling accusations, and distraction. Fun fact, the name Pog comes from a Hawaiian juice brand. Passion fruit, orange, guava. Kids would originally use the actual juice caps to play. disappearance, oversaturation, and lack of clear rules caused the fad to collapse by 1996. Collector status, holographic Pogs, limited edition, Simpsons sets, and branded slammers still circulate on eBay, sometimes selling for hundreds. Legacy. Pogs were the first taste of collectible culture for many kids. Fast, simple, and gone in a flash. Number 13, Goosebumps books, the paperback gateway drug to horror. In the 90s, horror didn't come from HBO, it came from Scholastic. R.L. Stine's Goosebumps series began in 1992, aimed at kids who wanted a safe scare. Titles like Say Cheese and Die and Night of the Living Dummy filled backpacks everywhere. Each book featured a haunting cover, a twist ending, and often an eerie moral. The franchise sold over 400 million copies by the end of the decade. Fun fact, R.L. Stine wrote most books in under a month. He called himself the literary equivalent of a Big Mac. TV adaptation. In 1995, Goosebumps hit TV, bringing low-budget terror and unforgettable intros to kids' bedrooms. Legacy. Goosebumps helped kids explore fear without trauma and turned many into lifelong readers. Number 12. The Oregon Trail, the most lethal educational game. You have died of dysentery. If those words haunted your childhood, you've played the Oregon Trail. Developed in 1971 but hitting its stride in 90s computer labs, this pixelated pioneer simulator mixed history with heartbreak. Kids learned to ration food, hunt for squirrels, and lose their entire wagon party to cholera, all before lunch. Fun fact, the original version was created by 3 student teachers in Minnesota, trying to make history class more fun. 90s boom. As computers entered schools, the Apple II version became iconic and surprisingly brutal. Legacy. It's been rebooted many times, but the original taught Gen Y a vital lesson. Life on the trail was short, and so was the life of your oxen. Number 11, Surge, the soda that burned bright and crashed hard. Launched by Coca-Cola in 1997 to compete with Mountain Dew, Surge was neon green, heavily caffeinated, and marketed as an extreme drink for adrenaline junkies. Its ads featured skateboarders, shouting teens, and literal explosions. Parents hated it. Kids loved it. Surge was pulled from shelves by 2003 due to lagging sales and health concerns. Fun fact, Surge had a cult following that launched Surge movement in the 2010s. Coca-Cola briefly re-released it on Amazon in 2014, and it sold out in hours. Legacy. Surge was the Red Bull before Red Bull. Loud, risky, and destined to burn out. Number 10, Windows 95, the operating system that changed the world. Before the internet was normal, Microsoft launched Windows 95, and it was treated like a cultural event. The launch featured a $300 million campaign, a Rolling Stones theme song, Start Me Up, and even a tutorial hosted by Jennifer Aniston and Matthew Perry. Windows 95 introduced the Start menu, taskbar, and plug and play. It revolutionized home computing. Fun fact, Microsoft paid $3 million just to license the Stones song, even though Bill Gates originally wanted RAM. Legacy. Windows 95 made PCs user-friendly and mainstream, setting the template for everything that followed. Number 9, Gigapet.
Emergency alert system. This is not a test. We interrupt this countdown to deliver a broadcast anomaly. Please stand by.
Unusual reports are coming in this evening as witnesses across multiple cities claim UFOs are hovering directly above KFC and Popeye's location.
It wasn't a prank. It just appeared, no sound, no warning, and said, 3-piece combo, extra crispy.
I was just feeding out my chickens when a beam of light came down and struck one.
Honey, can you turn it back to Fun Fact? But we're missing the countdown.
Oops, sorry, must have fat fingered it.
Number 8, AOL Instant Messenger, the original social network. Long before DMS and emojis, there was AIM. Launched in 1997, AOL Instant Messenger let teens create away messages, share song lyrics, and chat late into the night under mysterious screen names like XX Dark Souls XX. The Door Creak login sound was iconic, the buddy list sacred. Fun fact, many early internet relationships and heartbreaks started with a simple, hey smiley face. Shut down, AOL discontinued AIM in 2017. For many, it felt like losing a part of childhood. Legacy, AIM was the precursor to everything social media would become: instant, informal, and deeply emotional. Number 7. Nintendo 64, the polygonal revolution. Launched in 1996, the Nintendo 64 wasn't just a console, it was a portal. With 3D graphics, 4 controller ports, and classics like GoldenEye 007, Mario Kart 64, and The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, it redefined gaming. Retail price? $199 at launch, worth every penny to a generation. Fun fact, the 3-pronged controller confused many, but it introduced analog control, setting a new standard. Legacy? N64 built the future of console gaming and the soundtrack to millions of childhoods. Number 6, Lisa Frank, neon, sparkles, and capitalism. You couldn't escape it. Trapper keepers, folders, and pencil cases exploded with rainbows, unicorns, and glittery tigers, all from Lisa Frank Inc. Founded in 1979, Lisa Frank's psychedelic style hit peak popularity in the mid-90s. It dominated elementary schools with a color palette that practically screamed. Fun fact, the company was famously secretive. Lisa Frank herself rarely gave interviews and worked behind the scenes for decades. Collector status, original vintage items can sell for hundreds. There's even adult fan merch today. Legacy, Lisa Frank was girlhood branding at its loudest and most iconic. Number 5, the Macarena, the dance that broke the world. In 1996, 2 middle-aged Spaniards known as Los del Rio released Macarena, and nothing was ever the same. It became a global dance craze, topping charts and invading every school dance, wedding, and ballpark. Fun fact, the English remix by the Bayside Boys is the version most Americans know, and it stayed at number 1 on Billboard for 14 weeks. Legacy? Love it or cringe at it, Macarena showed how one song, and a few hip swings, could unite the entire planet. Number 4, the Spice Girls, Girl Power Goes Global. In 1996, 5 British women took the world by storm with their debut single, Wanna Be. They weren't just a band, they were a movement. Each member had a brand: sporty, baby, scary, ginger, posh. And every kid picked their favorite. Fun fact, the Spice Girls movie Spice World grossed over $100 million, despite being critically panned. Legacy? The Spice Girls redefined pop for a generation. They weren't manufactured idols. They were larger-than-life role models, shouting girl power. Number 3, Saturday morning cartoons, the weekly religion. Before streaming, cartoons were a weekend ritual. You woke up early, poured cereal, and disappeared into X-Men, Animaniacs, Batman, the animated series, or Recess. Networks fought for attention with entire cartoon blocks. It was commercial heaven and kid nirvana. Fun fact, the FCC ruled in 1996 that networks had to include educational content in cartoons, leading to the decline of some classics. Legacy. The death of Saturday morning cartoons in the 2000s ended a sacred childhood tradition, but their impact still animated in our hearts. Number 2, Game Boy Color, Pocket Power in Technicolor. In 1998, Nintendo released the Game Boy Color, finally bringing full-color graphics to their revolutionary handheld. With hits like Pokémon Yellow, The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Ages, and Tetris DX, it became the essential device on every road trip. Fun fact, the Game Boy Color had no backlight. Kids played by holding it under lamps, sunbeams, or clip-on accessories. Legacy? Game Boy Color bridged generations and sold 118 million units worldwide. It was joy, frustration, and pure 8-bit magic in your pocket. Number 1, Pokémon cards, playground currency, and a global phenomenon. Nothing captured 90s obsession like Pokémon cards. Released in the US in 1999, the trading card game turned kids into collectors, traders, and battlers. Holographic Charizard became a holy grail. Packs sold out. Stores saw riots. Schools banned them. Kids cried over trades gone wrong. It was beautiful chaos. Fun fact, a first edition holographic Charizard sold for over $400,000 at auction in 2022. Legacy? Pokémon wasn't just a card game. It was the beginning of a lifelong franchise, worth over $100 billion today. And for 90s kids, it all started with a pack that cost $3.99 at Toys R Us. We didn't know it at the time, but every beat from a Tamagotchi, every slap of a bracelet, and every rewound VHS tape was part of something bigger. The 90s weren't just a decade, they were a world built on moments, a time when connecting meant patience, collecting meant obsession, and entertainment came with late fees, scratched CDs, or waiting all week for Saturday morning cartoons. These relics, the blockbusters, the Beanie Babies, the dial-up tones, may be gone from shelves, but they still live here, in memory, in basements, in attics, and in all of us who grew up wondering if our Tamagotchi was okay while we took a math test. If this took you back, even for a second, share it with someone who remembers. Drop your favorite memory in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories, flashbacks, and forgotten treasures, right here on Fun Fact Drop.